Alright, good afternoon, good morning. Right now I'm going to teach you guys or go over with you the different ways in converting fractions, decimals, and percents. Real simple if you follow through. I'm going to do one or two examples for each of these. And if you need to see them again, just rewind the video from that point that you need to see and watch it again. Or if you don't need to see this whole video and you just want to see a piece of it, just kind of fast forward through or scroll through, okay? We'll begin with decimals to fractions. My best suggestion is to begin by creating this chart. Now, once you have the chart, let me give you an example. So let's say that we have a decimal, okay? 0.160. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that decimal and I'm going to put it in the chart. So here's my decimal, here's my decimal. So I'm going to put in that 160. 160. Very good. So now once it's in my chart, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that number and I'm going to create a fraction on it. So this is like my fraction line here. Okay? So I have 160 over. Now, how do I know what to put it over? Well, the last digit in my decimal here on my chart you can see is thousands. Alright, so I'm going to put 1,000 underneath the 160 for my fraction. And from that point, you would just simplify out your fraction, which I'm not going to do with you guys. Another one. So let's say we had 1.06. Again, this is my number. Here's my decimal, there's my decimal. 106. Here's my fraction line. Again, I'm going to put 106 over, what column does the last number fall in? Hundreds. I'm going to put it over 100. And from that point, again, you would simplify your fraction down. You'd end up having 1 with another fraction next to it. I believe 1 3/50 if you simplify down. So that is decimals to fractions. Next, I'm going to show you from fraction to decimal using the Cowboy method. So here's my fraction. Let's say 2/13. So I want you to think of this fraction as a cowboy and a horse. We know that the cowboy rides the horse. So the bottom number will become my horse. Okay. And the top number is my cowboy. Gotta make sure he has a cowboy hat. So we have the cowboy and the horse. Again, this is called the Cowboy method. So now at nighttime, the cowboy has to go to bed. Well, he goes to his house. Okay. And which one of these two would sleep inside the house? The cowboy or the horse? Exactly. The cowboy sleeps inside. So we put the top number that represents the cowboy, the 2, inside the division problem, and we put the horse outside. So we would have 13 over 2. Real quick, let's solve 13. Let's solve that equation or that problem. So we ask ourselves, how many times does 13 go into 2? 0 times. Okay. At this point, I would add my decimal inside my fraction next to my 2. And I need to bring my decimal straight up here where my problem is going to be solved. This is my decimal. And I add a couple of zeros. So how many times does 13 go into 20? 1 time. 20 minus 13 is 7. I'm going to bring down my 0. How many times does 13 go into 70? 5. 5 times 13, 65. 5, bring down my 0. How many times does 13 go into 50? 3. 3 times 13 is 39. 11, add a 0, bring down my 0. And you continue on this process until you do not have a remainder, or your remainder is repeating. So if I was to take 2 over 13 into a decimal, you can see it's going to be approximately 1.53. We just continue dividing until we got the full answer. Next, decimals to percent using Dr. Pepper method. So pretty easy. If I have a decimal, let's say 0.36, we need to convert that from a decimal to a percent. That's what you've been asked to do. So Dr. Pepper, D in decimal, P percent, D in doctor, P in pepper. So I'm going from a decimal to a percent. I'm going from the doctor to the pepper. I'm going that way. So I'm moving from the left to the right, doctor to pepper. I'm moving 2 position places. So I'm going to move my decimal 2 places. 1, 2. So 0.36 equals 36%. Okay? Using Dr. Pepper. Easy. Let me give you another example. Let's say we had 0.067 is my decimal. Again, I'm going from decimal to percent. I'm going from doctor to pepper. I'm moving 2 decimal places left to right. 1, 2 equals 6.7%. Next, percent to decimal. Again, I'm going to use the Dr. Pepper method. Percent, decimal, Dr. Pepper, D's and my P's. So if I'm going percent, 44%, going percent to decimal, I'm going from pepper to doctor. So I'm moving in this direction, pepper to doctor. Again, I'm moving 2 place settings. So 44, 1, 2 equals 0.44. Okay? 2 place settings. Give me another one. Let's say we had 3.9%. Again, I'm going from percent to decimal, so I'm moving from the right to the left. Pepper to doctor, percent to decimal. 1, 2 equals 0.039. And that's how you would solve a problem if we wanted to go from percent to decimal using the Dr. Pepper method. Fraction to percent. So if we wanted to go from fraction to percent, we would first convert the fraction to a decimal, and then after that we would convert the decimal to a fraction. So 1/2. I would use Cowboy Method. The cowboy goes in the house, the horse goes outside the house. 2 goes into 1, 0 times. Decimal, decimal, add a 0. 2 goes into 10, 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. No remainder, problem's done, right? So 1/2 equals 0.5. Now I want to go from decimal to percent. We're going to use the Dr. Pepper method. Decimal to percent, I'm going from doctor to pepper. I would even write down the word Dr. Pepper on my paper. I'm going from decimal to percent up, and I'm going left to right. So I'm going to move this 2 places. 1, 2, right? And that's going to give me 50%. 50%. And that's how we would go from a fraction to a percent, right? Fraction to decimal, decimal to percent, 50%. And lastly, thought I had one more. I'm sorry, percent to fraction. So again, I would want to convert the percent to a decimal first, and then the decimal to a fraction. Percent to fraction, convert the percent to a decimal, and then the decimal to a fraction. So I have percent, 44%. I want to convert that to a decimal. We're going to use Dr. Pepper. I'm going percent to a decimal, so I'm going P to D, percent to decimal. So I'm going this way, 1, 2. I'll rewrite that as 0.44. Then I'm going to put that into my chart. Well, here's my chart, remember? 0.44. So I'm going to write 44. I'm going to put that as my fraction line. And it's in this column, so 44 100ths. And then we would simplify down. So the answer to that question, if I'm going, I don't know where it went. Here we go. 44%, 0.44, which would equal 44 100ths. And then you guys got it. Pretty simple. Go through each one. You have lots of practice. Continue to do it. You want to be able to convert from one form to another, either going one way or going back the other way. Use the methods that I gave you. Take it easy, go step by step. If you need to use a calculator, do so, but understand the process in which doing it. Best of luck.